creators, it's Melissa from Melissa's Creations here. I'm doing a redo for my split coloring technique card. This video was requested by K Caps because she wanted to see how it could be done using the Stamparatus. So I've decided to remake the video. I'm using Petal Palette, which is the same stamp set that I used before. And the first thing that I'm going to do is put my Whisper White card mat down. This is a piece that measures 5.5 by 4.25. And I have a piece of grid paper on my Stamparatus so that I can mark the corners so that I can make sure I have proper placement with this piece and my card base that I'm going to stamp in the same spot on later. So once you mark all 4 corners, you can go ahead and put your magnets on, and then I'm going to place my stamps in the upper right hand corner first because I want to make sure that I can stamp on the right side and the left side in the same position. So I'm going to take one of the Stamparatus plates and I'm going to position it far off to the right, as you can see here. I'm going to pick up those stamps and then I'm going to reset the position and check to make sure that the stamps will stamp on both sides of my cardstock and they won't overlap too much. I'm using my Memento ink pad and I'm going to ink that up really well. Then I'm going to be stamping that down. Okay, and that looks pretty good. So I'm going to move my plate over and I'm just going to move it enough to where it doesn't overlap too much. You can see that the longer stamp, it kind of overlaps one of the roses. So I'm going to take a sticky note and I'm just going to kind of cover it up. You could also use the masking technique here and put that over the area that might get stamped on. But I think that this is going to work just fine for what I'm doing. So I'm going to ink it up and stamp it down again. Okay, so that looks pretty good. And so now I can take this piece off and I'm going to set it aside. And you'll notice that I've only stamped mostly on the upper part of that, and I left the lower part white. This piece here is Poppy Parade. It's a standard card base that I've scored in the middle at 4.25, and I'm lining those edges up, those corners, with the marks that I made earlier to make sure that I'm stamping in exactly the same position. So once I ink up that stamp again, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to stamp it down. And on this cardstock, I had to stamp it twice with my Memento ink pad just because it didn't quite get all saturated as dark as I wanted. So I'm just going to go ahead and ink that up and stamp it down a second time. Okay, and then I'm going to move it back to the first position and I'm going to cover up that little piece. I need to let the ink dry just a little bit before I put that sticky note on there. So I'm going to cover up that little end there. I'm going to ink up, and this one I also stamped twice just to make sure that I had really good saturation. And if you noticed already, this video is a little different. I'm doing a voiceover instead of live voice with my video. I'm just trying out a new technique, so if you watch this video all the way through, let me know which way you prefer more, the voiceovers or the normal way, I guess you could put it, of how I normally do my videos. So now that I have all of that stamped down, I can take this piece off of my Stamparatus. And we are going to start coloring. So you can see I have several different color of blends. I wasn't sure if I was going to use my Pool Party or not, but I decided that I didn't need to use it. I just wanted to use my Poppy Parade and my Old Olive. And I was just showing that you can see that the positioning on my white card and my Poppy Parade card are in the exact same spot. So that's how you would get them to be in line with each other. So I'm taking my Poppy Parade Stampin' Blend marker, and I am going to color in the roses, and I am using the light and the dark of each blender so that I can kind of get a nice variegated pattern on the roses. I'm not going to show you the whole coloring in. I'm going to speed it up here a little bit so that you don't have to sit through all that. I did as best as I could. I'm not a great colorer, but I think that the Stampin' Blends make it so easy because I just took the darker color for the roses and I just kind of went around all of the outlines. And then I took the lighter color and I filled in the white spaces on the roses, and it kind of gave it a really nice variegated look. So I just kind of did that all over with the flowers, and I did the same thing with the Old Olive Stampin' Blends. I did the light color first and colored everything in, and then I took the darker color and I just followed some of those lines on the leaves to give it a little bit of contrast. All right, it's looking pretty good, but now we need to cut it in half. And this is where you can get 2 cards out of the one colored piece that you do. I'm just making 1 card in this video, but you could easily do the same thing to a second piece of Poppy Parade cardstock while you have your stamps positioned, and you can take the top piece of the Whisper White card and you can make 2 cards instead of just 1. And you can see that in my first video that I did with the split coloring technique using the Stamp-A-Majig instead. So now I'm going to figure out which piece I want to use on this particular card. This is what one card could look like, but I decided that I wanted to go with the more colorful strip on this card since I was only making 1 for this video. So I'm just getting my position, making sure everything looks okay and everything is lined up, and it looks pretty darn good. I'm really happy with how it turned out. So I'm going to see what is going to work best. And on my first video, I put a thin black cardstock strip where the pieces join together. But this video, I decided to take a piece of our old olive ribbon in the 1/8 inch, and I wanted to use that instead. So I'm taking some snail to adhere my colored piece down first. And then I'm going to take that really thin ribbon and I'm going to adhere that down with some mini glue dots. So I'm just going to take my mini glue dots and I'm actually using my scissors to fold them in half so that they're not quite as wide. So I'm folding them in half and then I'm going to place them right where that white cardstock meets the red cardstock. And I'll put a few of them down that whole line. Okay, and then I can place my ribbon on top of that and kind of smooth it out and make sure that it adheres really well to those mini glue dots. And then I'm going to take my ribbon snips and snip off the ends of the ribbon. Okay, now I'm going to use my bone folder to give that score line a crease. And now it's time to decide where to put the sentiment. Now I actually did a couple different things when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do for my sentiment. I actually made a completely different thing that I was going to stick onto the card, but I didn't like how it turned out, so I decided to redo it, and I was just going to stamp directly onto the cardstock itself. So I'm bringing my Stamparatus in again because I know that using the black ink from the Memento directly onto the Poppy Parade cardstock, I'm going to want to stamp it at least twice to get a really dark image. So I wanted to make sure that I used my Stamparatus so that I could get my perfect positioning without having to have trouble lining things up. So I'm going to position my card where I want my stamp to go, make sure that I like where it is, and then I'm going to stamp it down. Okay, and there's one stamp, and I'm just going to ink it up and stamp it down again so I have a really nice definition. Okay, and then I'm good with my thank you, but now I want to do a sentiment on the inside. So I'm going to do the same thing, and I have another one of those stamps from the Petal Palette. I'm going to twist my plate around so that I can pick up that other stamp without moving my thank you. And I'm going to position my card, and I'm kind of playing around with the position to see where I want it to stamp, and I think I want it up at the top, so I'm going to go ahead and try and center it as best as I can and stamp it down. Okay, so we are almost finished with this card. I just wanted to add a few more embellishments. My first card that I did, at the very first video, I didn't really have any embellishments on the outside of the card, so I decided to use the clear epoxy droplets, and I thought that those really were just beautiful on this project, and they just kind of give it a little extra oomph. They kind of look like water droplets, and I think with the roses it looks really nice, so I decided to use those. And I'm using my scissors to pick them up. I'm just going to put one small one up on the Poppy Parade, and then I'm going to put a large one down on the Whisper White piece, and then I use one other large one up to kind of create a triangle shape almost. And that's it. That is my split coloring technique card redone using the Stamparatus. Thank you so much for watching the video today. I hope you enjoyed. Please be sure to click the subscribe button and hit the bell icon so you can be notified when I upload new videos. And follow me on my social media. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest at MKre8tions, and you can find me online at melissascreations.com and facebook.com/MKre8tions.